birth stories. Oh my gosh. I'm here to tell my birth story because it was insane. No, I didn't deliver in the car. I almost did. In the middle of a blizzard. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Welcome back to our channel. I hope that you joined us for our Trying to Conceive. We are going to talk about the similarities and the differences between my two labor and deliveries. So first, let me tell you the stories. For my first son, he was my high-risk pregnancy, my very complicated labor and delivery. It was a snowy February night. We had just had a blizzard the weekend before. Spoiler alert, we had a blizzard the weekend after too. So he was born between two blizzards and we were set for a huge snowstorm, which when they locked us down and said it was a state of an emergency, I was like, it's going to be a blizzard. We're going to have 3 blizzards in a row. No, I still call him my blizzard baby, but he wasn't born in the middle of a blizzard. It was ruled a snowstorm. It's not fair. They had told me on Thursday that they were going to induce me the beginning of the week. If you want to see that complicated story, oh my gosh, go back to that video. I go to sleep probably like 11:30, 12 o'clock on Saturday, and all of a sudden I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, I have a stomach ache. I have to go number 2. So I go into the bathroom and I'm like, this is weird. Like, I don't need to go. I get up and I start pacing around the living room and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom again. So I run into the bathroom and I'm sitting there trying to go, and then I'm like, nothing's happening. I'm going to see if I can time them. See if it happens again. Maybe it's a fluke. Maybe it's Braxton Hicks. I'm going to get some water and try and go back to bed. Well, I get my phone and I start clicking the contraction buttons. Oh, another funny thing is I didn't have a contraction app. I had to download it. So I had to wait for it to download. And that's when I realized that this pain keeps coming. But I kept convincing myself, no, I'm fine. No, have to go number 2. Go back in. I realized that they were timeable and they were about 5 minutes apart. And then I remembered when they were like, if you have contractions and they're timeable between 5 to 7 minutes apart, you need to call the hospital and start heading in. Oh my gosh, I think this is it. I wake my husband up and he's like, are you sure? And I was like, I don't know. I'm scared to sound the alarms and like make the doctor come in if he's not there. I think. So then I texted my mom and she was like, I'm getting dressed. And I was like, oh crap, now I'm in it. Like my mom's like meeting me at the hospital. So I called the doctor and he said, hey, are they timeable? It also sounded like I woke him up from sleep. Sorry, doctor. But he said, are they timeable? And I said, yeah, it says 5 minutes apart. And he said, are they painful? And I said, they're becoming painful. And he said, get in there now. I'll meet you there. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening. I hope this is not false labor. But even if it is, it's always good to go get checked out anyway. That's all I kept saying. So I wake my husband up and I'm like, let's go. We walk outside and it is the thickest snowflakes I have ever seen. Then when they fall onto the ground, they are just, it's sludge. It is like the most spinniest snow. Like I'm just thinking we're going to be driving down and we're just going to like spin or lose control. It was just the slipperiest snow. We're going down all these back roads and of course like this is 2:30 in the morning. Like no one's on these roads. So we're leaving the first tracks. Okay, it's going to be better on the highway. Well, my contractions are now coming fast and furious. And all I kept doing was like yelling at my husband, sorry, Andy, I know. I was so scared. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know how you could support me. I should have done research. That's a plug to my second labor and delivery. When I was more in control. We finally get on the highway and he is going like, I think it was like 15 miles per hour. I think at some points he was going like under 10. We just need to get there. And he's like, I am getting you there as fast as I can, as safe as I can. And I'm like, I know, because if we get in an accident right now, like I am huge. That is not going to be good for anyone. Even though there was no one on the road, we cannot go off the road because of the snow. It was just not my favorite moment, okay? I guess looking back, it was like one of my favorite moments, but like not my favorite weather. So then we saw a salting truck. So we got behind him and he allowed us to go a little faster, but I was screeching on the outside of my body, and on the inside of my body, I was just like, if this was a summer baby, we'd be there by now. And that's all I kept thinking. And then this is where I started getting the worst pains down there, not in my stomach, like pressure. Oh my goodness, I am not going to be one of those women that has a baby on the side of the road in a snowstorm. So I'm freaking out and I almost made my husband pull over to check because I was just like, there is something coming out. Luckily there wasn't, but it felt like everything just dropped. And I was just like, well, we're not pulling over to check. I would rather just catch the baby myself and be on the way. So I didn't say anything, and I'm just like fighting the urges and trying to hold on. Really painful back labor in a Volkswagen Jetta. Get yourself a bigger car. No. My husband pulls up to the door to the hospital, and I have been going in and out of this hospital for weeks now. Like, I know my way in through this door. The problem is I got out of the car and my water broke. Oh my gosh, my water is not supposed to break. I have polyhydramnios. My umbilical cord could rupture, but I'm like, I'm at the hospital. This is the place I want to be. So I'm like, I gotta get upstairs super fast. I like waddle as fast as I can to the front door, and it is locked. Don't ask me why. It looks like there was someone at the desk, but they like locked the door and went to the bathroom or something. Could be wrong, but there was a little crack in the door, and I was like, hello? And I was like, I'm having a baby. How do I get in? And I'm like trying to open the door. And then all of a sudden I like step back and I'm like, oh, use the emergency room door. And I'm like, where's the emergency room? And I was like, oh, it's right there. It was like 25 feet away. I feel like at our regular hospital, they don't lock the front door. Like, how do the nurses get in? Waddle over to that. I go through the door and I'm like, help me. And I don't think there was too many people in the waiting room. Maybe like one other person. But the guy at the front desk, I saw wheelchairs to my left, and I just sat down in one. I was like, help me. My water's not supposed to break, and my water's breaking. And he was like, and he like runs over. He zooms me into the elevator all the way upstairs. He's running. He's huffing and puffing. This poor guy. I walk in and all the nurses are at the desk, like leaning over the desk, like talking to each other. And then they like all look over slowly and they're like, oh, we've been waiting for you. And I'm like, creepy. Please help me. We have to check for an umbilical cord. My water's not supposed to break. In case no one told you that I have like super polyhydramnios, I'm here to tell you, like, we have to make sure I don't have an umbilical cord rupture. Like right now. They like walk over and slowly and they're like, we got you now. Don't worry. And I'm just like, no, we have to look for an umbilical. Please, please. I get up in my room and just drop trowel, put on the gown, get in the bed, and they are like, everything's fine. Oh, they get the monitor on me. They're like, baby's fine. You're fine. Like, best announcement in the world. And when I said my water broke, it didn't all break. There was like a gush, and then it just kept breaking as I got up to the maternity floor. It just kept coming out the entire time. And then we got in there and they were like, oh, you have another sack of water. We're going to break it. There was a gush of water that came out. We're going to see how far you are. Do you want an epidural? I'm jumping in to add some details I missed. When they asked me the first time if I want an epidural, took a moment and I said, no. And then I just heard a piano sound, dun, dun, dun. And then my mom and my husband looked back and forth at each other. And I don't know what I was thinking. I did not prepare for this. Nobody was coaching me. I was all on my own. And I said no to the epidural. A little while went by and she said, are you sure you don't want an epidural? I didn't think I needed an epidural, but I think I need an epidural. This is horrible. So they checked me now 6 centimeters. So close, but I also know you can go hours. How long is this going to take? But I have an epidural coming. Well, one thing that nobody tells you is that you have to get your blood taken to then go through the anesthesiologist to then get your epidural. So they're like, yeah, we're just going to take your blood really quick and then it'll take 20 minutes and then you can have your epidural. And I'm like, what? I thought it was a shot I'd be getting like right now. And they're like, no, sorry. A couple minutes after that, the doctor came in and he pretty much checked me and then he's like, she's ready. Am I still getting the epidural? And they were like, honey, you don't have time for the epidural. Like your baby's coming right now. And I'm like, what? And then it's like, up go the legs. And I'm like, wait, right now? I just arrived. It felt like that. Oh, yeah. And remember, I have polyhydramnios, which is an excessive amount of amniotic fluid. I don't know if this is standard or because I had polyhydramnios, but he put on an entire protection suit and he put on the hat that goes all the way down with the goggle eyes that are in the hat. At one point, I guess he was like, push, push, push. And he just went, and the water like shot where his head was, just like straight across across the room. I don't remember that at all. That would have been a crazy sensation to remember or feel. It's probably like kind of embarrassing, but maybe it's important to know. And I also, because it was my first time and the nurses do it all the time, I didn't realize I could take a break and then like go for it. I was also like very distracted by like everybody touching me, like touching me up here, touching me down there, and then the TV was on. Why am I watching? It was literally a pole dancing infomercial. When people are like, oh, you had an unmedicated birth, I'm like, don't give me any credit. I was begging for an epidural. Push like you're gonna poop. That's what they told you. I remember feeling everything. I remember the ring of fire as his head was coming out and just being like, holy crap, that hurts so bad. I remember the doctor being like, you can do this, push, push. I was very overstimulated. It was my first time. I was so scared. I was just a noob. I'm a rookie. It's my first time. The nurses and the doctors do this all the time, and I feel like they weren't telling me what they were doing. They just started putting stuff all over me, and I'm just like, okay, like talk to me too. I'm not a robot. One of the nurses started putting an oxygen mask on me, and that freaked me out. So I was like, what is happening? Why are you doing that? I couldn't catch my breath. So I thought it was for me. And then no one answered me. Why am I getting this? And she was like, oh, if the baby's heart rate's dropping, just keep pushing. Oh my gosh. And that's when I went like mama bear rage monster mode. And I was like, I pushed that baby out. So I pushed for 20 minutes and he came out and he was awesome. He cried right away and they put him on my chest. My newborn's on me. I didn't realize the pain went away as soon as you give birth because your body stops contracting. Like that was great. I wish somebody would have said like push harder because then you're done. And I should have known. But in that moment I was just like, I'm gonna feel this way forever. And then I like stick my finger in my husband's face and I was like, I will never do that again. Do you hear me? That was awful because it was an unmedicated birth and I was not adequately prepared. Something I did differently for my second labor and delivery that went a lot better. I remember having to push out the placenta, but it was easy with my son. So I had my newborn baby and then the team of people starts doing all this stuff around me and I'm just trying to be like, I have a son. I'm responsible for human. So they couldn't regulate my son's temperature, so they took him and they put him under the light. I said in my other video he was jaundiced, but then I look back at my notes. After labor and delivery, I remember them saying, we need you to pee so we know that everything's working or something. I don't even know. They tried it with the bedpan and then they're like, we have to put a cath in. And I remember being like, can't you just wait? Like, is it that big of a rush? All of a sudden, my mom like just got this like horrified look on her face. Is there supposed to be that much blood? And the nurses started like calling the doctor and my mom said I went like white as a sheet on the bed. The doctor came back in. He had just sewn me up. He stuck his whole hand inside me. I don't know what he was doing because I had already like delivered the placenta, but it must have got stuck on the wall. And I remember thinking that he was mad at me because I like had sworn like many times and I was loud and I'm very dramatic. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, he is like hurting me on purpose. And it wasn't until I was pregnant with my second and I listened to the birth hour. She had a similar hemorrhage after her birth. And when I heard that birth story, I healed. Oh my gosh, he was saving my life. But again, nobody explains this. There's something wrong with your cervix. Don't freak out, but he has to like get it right now because you're losing so much blood. In recovery, they brought me blueberry muffin, they brought me a couple snacks, and I thought everything was fine. And then they were like, all right, we're gonna get you up and take you to the bathroom. I got up and I just had a baby and I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. When I sat down on the toilet, seeing my feet come up and my head dropped back, I fainted in the bathroom. She had to call for help because I could have fallen sideways. Thank God I didn't, but I woke up on the toilet. What happened? And she was like, you fainted. I remember I was so out of it. I was like, I saw my legs come up. I was like, were my toes pointed? Because I'm a dancer and it's very important for me that my toes are pointed. Oh, it's crazy. So that was like one of my comedy stories. So that is my son's birth story. And let's go into my daughter's birth story and I will tell you all the ways that I did things differently.